Welcome to another special episode celebrating the 20th anniversary of 150 Slayton Avenue, also known as the IALR main building, which opened in 2004. Joining us are two guests who are very familiar with the maintenance of the building, Jeff Forlines and Stewart East. Jeff retired in 2020 after 16 years of being with IALR, and Stewart was hired in 2013 by Jeff and is now Senior Facilities Manager. Thank you, gentlemen. Jeff and Stewart, please introduce yourselves and give a little bit of background on your experience and career before joining IALR.
Sure. My name's Jeff Forlines, and I worked here at the Institute for 16 years in maintenance. Before I came here, I was self-employed, and prior to that, I'm an HVAC technician. I've been in the HVAC world for 40-some years, and building maintenance for probably 30, and full master tradesman license in electrical, plumbing, HVAC, and gas pipe. I went to school at Danville Community College and got a business degree the first time I went back and got an HVAC diploma. When I finished there in 1979, the HVAC world is what I've been in since. Yeah, before I came to the Institute, I started off in a knitting mill, working in their HVAC group. And from there, I went to Henry County Schools and did the same for them. But during that time, I started a business on the side, and part-time, pretty much went to full-time. And that's what I was doing when I came to work here. And the reason that I came to work here was because it just seemed like it was a new building. I was getting older and needed not to crawl and stared in the heat as much as I was having to on those jobs. And I've enjoyed every minute of my stay here. It was actually a lot of fun and a lot of nice people. And I pretty much made my living doing my hobby. I've always liked to fix stuff. And
it's always good that when you have you can work and enjoyed what you're doing. As you said, you work doing your hobby.
Yes. It's not many people can say that. Yeah. When you're doing your hobby, it don't really feel like work to you, although it definitely was at times anyway. But here, this is a good place for an HVAC technician to come, anybody that's in any of those trades, electrical. But the HVAC world covers a lot of territory, but here you pretty much got something from a water cooler up through the chillers, the bigger 250-ton chillers and stuff like that. Most people that are here working today in my world don't get to see all of that. You get to see the lower half of it or the bigger half of it. You don't see many companies working on residential through commercial, the bigger commercial. So it's an opportunity. It was for me, although I've seen the jobs that I've worked. It's gave me the opportunity to work on equipment just like what was here and bigger. But I learned a lot here because it was so updated. The principle behind it all is the same, but the controls not. They update every year, every month, I enjoyed all that part. I learned a lot.
During your career here at the Institute, you were continuously learning new technology that went along with the HVAC systems.
Yes, and other stuff too. Here I was pretty much responsible for anything in the building that wants specialty. Like ITs. I'd help them if they needed me, but I didn't do much of that at all. My main focus was building maintenance. Yeah, I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of stuff here that was new, updated, the LED lighting, some of it. But I didn't see a whole lot of that in the beginning because I guess they didn't have it. But when they started having it, they tried to come over here and get us to install some of it. And it won't, the bulbs, and it was expensive for like one fixture then. And I'd say, well, how long did it last? 35 years. 35 years. You won't have to change a bulb for 35 years. I said, how long do y'all warrant it? 12 months. I said, something wrong with this picture. y'all got to perfect it a little better before you need to come back. Stuff like that. You know, when I started here, the building was new. I actually started before they opened to the public because I saw some of it built, but mostly like ceiling tiles put in, and they didn't have the elevator working when I started. And it didn't have a lot of the carpet in places put down. So I got to see behind the walls some too, to see what's hidden, and above the ceiling before it was covered up, so I would know where some things were that nobody else would really, unless they was involved with building it.
And you started in February of 2004?
Yeah.
And the building opened up in June or July of 2004?
That's right. And one special thing that I had to do, when the building opened up, they planted a tree. And in that hole they dug for that tree, it was at least 7 buckets of dirt from the 7 counties that came. So each one of them that the Institute was supposed to going to serve at that particular time had a bucket of dirt in the hole with the tree. And my priority, didn't matter what happened, I had to make that tree live.
What kind of tree was it?
I don't remember.
It's still alive.
It's still alive out there, though. I looked at it today.
Yep.
Now, where is this tree?
Right around near the admin parking lot, right on that corner where the cafe parking is. Cyber
Okay.
Cafe.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
A lot of people don't.
We should commemorate that with a plaque with your name, Jeff.
You should put something. You should have. I don't even gonna say with my name, but it should have been something there.
Now, Stewart, can you give us a background on yourself as far as your experience and where you came from before joining the Institute?
So this year, December, will be my 11th year here. Jeff originally hired me back in 2013, like Daniel mentioned. Before the Institute, my career, did a little bit in the mining industry, the electrical industry, HVC industry, chemical industry, so pretty different career paths before I came here. I originally went to DCC for electronics, Danville Community College, graduated there with an associate degree, ended up going to Averett and getting my bachelor's degree there in business administration. So yeah, pretty broad career before starting at the Institute, and again, applied here after a company was closing down, and they said, hey, you need to be looking for a job, and really the Institute was one of the first places that I applied for, and came in for a couple of interviews and got along well with Jeff and the other folks that interviewed me, and great experiences so far. I really loved working with Jeff, full of knowledge, learned a lot from him, especially on the HVAC side of things and electrical. So
Now, you mentioned that when you started, the building was still being completed. Right. And did that have a certain appeal to you to be a part of something that's brand new, not only physically, but also to the area, but to be able to see like what was in the walls? Was that an advantage to you for your position?
Yeah, being involved with a brand new building is always a plus, because everything's under warranty for a year, some things 2 and some things 5 or more. But, and I was asked when I started here, what are you going to do? I said, whatever you ask me to do. So I looked around, this building has probably close to 4,000 light bulbs, and it had 2,800 and some light fixtures. And I could see what I was going to be doing. Even things are brand new. You got that much in the same building, something's going to happen every day. And it did.
And Jeff, I know we're talking about some of your initial responsibilities and projects during those early years. Talk a little bit about furniture moving, because we had a lot of that.
We had a whole lot of furniture moving, and when I started, I was the only maintenance man here for 9 years, and it was just a little skeleton crew in the beginning. So I moved a lot of furniture by myself back then, and the bad part, though, was like we need 30 chairs upstairs in the room, and they all here, and the elevator don't work. I didn't have a problem. They asked me when they hired me, they said, you being an HVAC technician, how you going to feel when I ask you to move a chair or go out and pick a stick up off of the driveway? I said, it all pays the same, right? I said, so I didn't have any problems, but yeah, and then they started hiring some of the ICC people, and they started moving their own stuff to a point. I was involved a lot, though, in the very beginning, and then after Stewart got here, we had still continued to move a lot of furniture, probably at that point more than what originally when I was here by myself.
Yeah, at that point, we started, obviously the campus started growing, so did activities on campus. So that meant more meetings and more delegates showing up for photo opportunities or what have you.
And, you're talking about the building. In the beginning, the first year, they realized that they were growing and needed more space. So we started, I can't remember if it was the first winter I was here, not counting when I started, or the next one. They were beginning to get more and more people and needed more and more space. So up in the building, in the office building, all the offices in the perimeter were there, but everybody else was out in the center of it in cubicles. And so we go in that year and we add walls to where some of the cubicles were and made more offices.
And those offices are still being utilized today, and we're in need of more offices, believe it or not. Yep.
And another thing that I had a kick out of a lot of times, when they first put the building together, the doors and all, some of the hardware on the doors, the handles, were put on backwards. So people would go in their office and shut the door and couldn't get out because they was locked in. So they would call me. And another thing that was a little aggravating is I had me and some of the executive people had master keys, and that was all. Everybody else had a key to the door. But a lot of mornings, for some reason, they didn't have the key to that door. And I would be on the roof changing the filter, and somebody called me and said, can you come let me in my room or my office? That happened to me a lot. So I made a lot of miles just opening office doors.
I can assure you that still happens.
But then at times somebody would come in with a key, and they would open it, and I'd trot all the way down here. And, oh, yeah, such and such came in. They had a key. They let me in. I said, well, why didn't you call and tell me? I think during my career here, the worst thing that happened here, maintenance-wise, was I don't know how long I'd been here. It'd been a few years. We started getting this building has what they call variable air volume boxes that the air travels through to go into the rooms to do the heat and cooling. And on the heat side, you got hot water coils in those boxes that have strainers in them, and some of the strainers start stopping up. And see the way it works, the boilers heat the water. It's pumps down there that pump the water through the buildings. And there's valves on the coils that open to let water come through the coils for more heat or less heat. And they have strainers in them. Well, some of these strainers start stopping up. It looked like rust, which it was rust. And but you do a chemical treatment in the water to prevent all of that from happening, and it apparently won't get done right. So we called people to come and check it, and they'd say, oh, that's just something from inside of the pipe, debris. I said, yeah, I think it's debris, all right, but it's rust. And so that continued on, and it would get worse and worse. And finally, we got some different people in the same company to come and start looking at it, and come to find out the chemical treatment hadn't been done right in the pipes, and they were rusted inside. And lots of these VAV boxes stopped up, and people were getting cold, and some offices had no heat till you go clean that strainer. So the pipes were rusted on the inside, and then in a few areas they started leaking a little bit. So the company that installed all of the pipe work had to come in and redo some of it completely, and they spent weeks and weeks down here fixing the problems.
And we still deal with the repercussions of that today. We usually have to go through once a year and clean every strainer on every VAV box, like Jeff was talking about, and blow those down and get the rust out, and just to make sure during the heating season during the winter that all that heating is available for all of our folks here in the building. But luckily we don't have any leaks. Everything's still holding together. So.
But that's the worst thing that I know that's happened. And one other thing that we argued about this a little while too, on the chillers out back. It's 3 of them, and they all had like 18 motors apiece on top, condenser fan motors. And the shaft started rusting really, really bad. And this was in the first 5 years, I'm sure. So, I mean, they would rust. It looked like a beaver ate a tree. I mean, that's kind of the way that it was getting. The little shafts was getting just tiny. And we called Train before that, actually. I mean, when we first noticed it, and they would replace one or something like that, and then it was all of them is bad. What's the problem? And so Train was trying to say at the factory, not at the factory, but here, like when that generator cranks up, which is out there beside of them, that the exhaust off the generator was causing that at first. And I said, it's not. I said, if that was the truth, I said, every motor around here would be like this. These are just a little closer. I said, what happened was, in my personal opinion, they shipped out of Wisconsin. They shipped out from up there when it was winter, and there's a lot of salt on the roads, and salt got on them and ate those shafts up. I said, prove me wrong. Well, they couldn't. So they did give us all of those motors under warranty. After the warranty was over, they still did it because they realized they were probably wrong with the generator smoke. But that's one of those things that happens. You're dealing in large equipment. You're going to have a lot of problems from time to time. Not like that usually, but.
Since then, though, all of those chillers have actually been rebuilt through a renewal program that Train offers. So they're sitting out there 20 years old, and they've never been fully replaced, but they've been rebuilt one time.
Both your responsibilities are not just upkeep of the building for inside of equipment. It's also outside maintenance too, for groundskeeping and landscaping. And has that always been a part, or is that just kind of a natural thing to also do with your job?
When I started, I can go from back to when I started. My boss lady looked after all of that, and it was all under contract. The only thing that I did then was if we had a bad storm, I'd go clean the driveway. But since then, over the years, it was contracted to different people.
Yeah, I think it's fairly normal for the facilities department to oversee at least the janitorial and landscaping and those type contracts. And unless you want to fully staff and outfit your facility with equipment and employees to handle that, it's better sometimes to contract that out.
Well, the bottom line, yes, it's always been overseen by maintenance.
What had gotten to that point where, hey, we need somebody else on staff for maintenance?
New buildings, basically new buildings being built, and it was just more than I could do alone. When I started, we had all of the larger HVAC under contract, but I did all of the smaller stuff, like the little units like you saw putting on the building, probably. All of those, I would call them residential units, really. I did all that by myself in the beginning. Exhaust fans. It won't much that was contracted out maintenance-wise except the bigger air conditioning. And then more and more people started coming. When I started, the building was, research end was just a shell, basically. It had the labs there, no one in them. And so people started coming, wanting to, Virginia Tech mainly, needing labs, lab space, and other people too. So we started building out the labs, putting the cabinetry in it, running the electrical. And all of this was done under contract. I mean, I was overseeing it rather. Maybe overlooking wasn't the right word. And it would be one lab, and it'd take longer to upfit a lab than you would think, to get all of the stuff in it that they actually need. And so I got involved with that some, and other things going on, and like I had nitrogen tanks in the back of the building to produce nitrogen for the labs. And it just got more and more involved to the point to where we did have to contract more of some of the stuff that I was doing myself. And the place grew, just grew like, maybe not like it is right now because it was a new thing that was starting up. But it'd be one lab, and then the next lab, and the next lab. They'd have labs, they put carpet in, that they wanted to pull the carpet up and put flooring in. They had labs that they want to cut all the way around the middle table to prevent vibration. I got to be involved with all of it, personally doing it myself, not a lot of it, other than showing them where breaker boxes was and, come out of this one, don't come out of this one. Run your air pipe through here. We didn't have air compressors when I first started, which every lab now has air in them, I'm sure. And it was a big discussion on what to do with those. I was trying to get them to put them right back under a shed or in a little building. They wanted to put them right in the middle of the boiler room. Well, I lost. They right in the middle of the boiler room. But
and then a little later in your career, kind of just before I started, talking about laboratory equipment and kitchen equipment, ice machines, deep fat fryers, oven stoves, refrigeration units, walk-in coolers, walk-in freezers. Again, going back to the laboratories, you have different pieces of equipment that vibrate media and mix it all together, and incubation chambers, which is basically like a heater and refrigerator combo. I can remember working with you a ton on those because we had something like 20 or 30 of those units, and it was always one that was something wrong with a condenser fan motor, evaporator fan motor. The compressor would go out, so we worked on those things constantly.
Now, do you have any stories about trying to get oversized pieces of equipment into lab spaces?
Quite a bit. If somebody didn't do their research, they would buy something that'll be a foot wider than the door, and it won't know a way to twist it to make it go. So we had to go in just about every lab, and probably every lab, and add a 12-inch panel to the door, that opened separate. to get a lot of the equipment through it. And one of the things that I remember, not faulting nobody, just saying, we had to cut a door open and bigger to put a piece of equipment in it, and then went and put the same door back, knowing it had to come out sometime. And, so finally we just added panels to all of them.
I know we're talking about the main building here. Was there lessons learned on this building that were improved upon or corrected on future buildings?
Sure. When you build a building this size, or even smaller, you can't think of everything. You know, you think you're doing what you need to do at the time, and basically you are. But you don't know when you build in this building that somebody's going to come in with a piece of equipment that's twice as wide as the door, you know, to get it in. Some of the labs, 2 of them had roll-up doors, which were smart. A smart idea to do that on labs. When you build a lab and you're speculating really who's coming, you don't know who's coming. You don't know what they want to do. You know what you can allow them to do at the same time, or the equipment that they're going to have to bring in to do it with. So you're always going to have some problems of that nature.
And that's one of the challenges that we still face even today with our growing campus outside of the main institute building here is sometimes we build a building with a specific purpose in mind, and then it turns out, hey, we end up needing to use it in a different way. So that's one of the challenges that we face in the facilities department is trying to figure out how to make this work, whether it be HVAC, electrical, plumbing, whatever it may be. We have to make it work for our tenant or a new institute program, whatever it may be. We always are challenged with making it work. And I think we've done a good job of that over the past 20 plus years.
There's certainly a perception that when people who have never been to the Institute at 150 Slayton Avenue, that when they pull up, they see this very nice looking, modern, unique looking building, and it looks nice when they walk into it. It was designed beautifully. They're here for a meeting, they're here for a conference, or they're here to eat in our cafe, Megabytes Cafe, or something. There's probably not a lot of thought about what goes on behind the scenes as far as what it involves to maintain and upkeep a building of this size, and with all the different types of uses that we have. As we mentioned, we've talked about the laboratory space, we've talked about multiple conference spaces, as well as a cafe that has its own dedicated kitchen. I know when I started here, there was no walk-in freezer, or there was a smaller freezer, but at some point a decision was made to have a larger walk-in freezer put onto the back of the building.
Well, one of the reasons for that to happen, the original freezers that we had were like 2-door reach-in, like a refrigerator basically, in the refrigeration too. When we first started, none of that was really used. And then it started getting to the point where they wanted to get a caterer to come in and be able to do the events. And at first, all of that came from Greensboro. And they brought basically what they wanted, and they would use those refrigerators and stuff for that. And they became the caterers here, so they started storing stuff in those. Within the first year of them using those, they started giving lots of problems. And I talked to the factory about them, and they send me parts to add on to them that they didn't add to them like they should have. I mean, it was just a flaw. Well, over time, I was getting called down here at least once a week to work on at least one of them, sometimes more than that. And then I would get it fixed, and it'd be, might go a month or two. But I spent lots of times coming in at night or working on them in the daytime. They were just a lot of trouble. So at the point that they got to be, reason they were so much trouble, I mean, the reason that the walk-in freezer and cooler got put in was just the fact that that type was getting too small. They was giving so much problems. They didn't want to go out and buy some more of what was going to, same thing happen again. So they decided to go ahead and put in the bigger equipment for future use, and it proved to work. I mean, it grew and grew and grew, and they started storing more and more stuff here. But it was a lot behind. It won't. We just let's put in a walk-in cooler. It just didn't pop up like that. There was reasons for that.
And Jeff, you can speak on this a little more too if you want to, but just going back to Daniel's question about thinking about when people come into the building and talk about how modern the building and how well the building has held up, and they're so amazed that it's 20 plus years old. And the funny thing is, and a lot of people don't understand this, is we have actually had to do very little in the main atrium to keep it looking that good. Obviously, things like the terrazzo floor, it gets waxed and buffed very frequently to get scratches out of it, and it's maintained very well. And we have painted the main atrium area one time, but only one time over 20 years has really any paint or touch-up been done to it. Obviously, we go in and there's still fluorescent light bulbs. A lot of them have been changed to LED, but we've got some specialty fixtures that take specialty bulbs that they don't make LED replacements for. So we have to look at potentially upgrading those in the future to a whole different fixture, or actually have the lights changed over to a newer LED model. The good thing is, since this was built with a local architectural firm, we also used many local contractors for some of the lighting fixtures. So I still have the original print and design of the custom lighting fixtures that were designed for the atrium of this building, and have been in contact with them to potentially change them out to an older halogen style bulb to a newer LED style with the ability to go red, green, or blue, so we could have almost any color shining down in the atrium for some of the events that we have. But again, it's been pretty amazing that, again, it's 20 years old, and I hear it every day, the astonishment from people that the building is that old, and they're like, man, it looks like this building is 4 or 5 years old at most. And that just goes back to the upkeep that Jeff provided for years here, and then hopefully the upkeep that we'll keep doing in the future.
Hopefully they'll say the same thing about you. It's like, oh man, Stewart really did a good job of keeping that building, keeping it updated. Yeah, that you mentioned painting the atrium. I forgot about that, but I do remember that the atrium was repainted.
Yeah, and that was quite a project. We had a contractor come in with a 40-foot boom lift, which is really the only way you can get to the majority of the space in there because it's so high. And he spent 2 or 3 weeks just kind of inch by inch going around that and repainting it, and it still looks fantastic to this day.
Whenever I come into the atrium and I do see the lift in the atrium with one of you guys in it, I'd always just stop. It was just so fascinating to see, you up in the air, whether it was 20 feet, 30 feet, changing out lights or doing something. It was just because the atrium, the space in the atrium is so tall, and you can get a lot of height in there. You could be all the way in the air and you're still not even touching the ceiling.
Yep, absolutely.
Has there been any challenges when it comes to maintenance because of how the building was designed or because of the choice of building materials?
I've got a good one, and I'm sure Jeff will agree. There is lots of glass, and a lot of it is really high off the ground. So we have obviously cleaned some of the glass ourselves in the past, and also had contractors come in and do it. But we're talking 30, 40, 50 feet above the ground. So obviously boom lifts and scissor lifts and things like that are required to do that. And not all of it has concrete outside of it. So some of it has heels that you have to navigate just to get to it. But yeah, while the glass is beautiful and stunning, when it's clean, it's hard to keep that way.
And the thing about the glass is, you can't expect anybody, I don't think, to clean glass every month or anything like that. Plus, you don't see it dirty.
Until the sun shines through
Yeah,
it.
the sun has to shine a different way. But, we always had the glass cleaned here at least once a year, and occasionally more than. And it's a lot of work that goes into that on their part and our part, too. Our part mainly is to keep the people out of the way of the lifts and stuff falling, accidentally falling on them.
And honestly, just that piece is getting more and more difficult as our campus has grown and we've got so much activity. It's hard to shut down an entrance or exit for, a week or so just to have the glass cleaned.
I know the research wing, the bottom floor, the stairwell, it's had several accidents with lawn care and glass breakage.
Yep, absolutely. And Jeff's seen it during his time too, I'm sure. But we've replaced several pieces of glass from rocks or different things being shot from lawnmowers or weed eaters. And that's happened actually on several of our buildings.
Yeah.
And they are not cheap.
I bet.
But usually our landscaping contractor has insurance for that. So.
But if you're there when the rock hits the window and you stand there and watch it, it just starts scattering on there. It's pretty amazing to watch. Say it didn't happen, but, at least you can get a little beauty out of it, I guess.
Yeah. It's a piece of artwork.
Yeah.
And Jeff, when you started at the Institute back in 2004, it was a brand new building being constructed. You saw an ad in the paper, applied to the position. What was your reaction when you came to this area and saw the building for the first time? What did you think of it? Because on a previous episode, we had Larry Hazen, who was the architect of the building. We talked to him about the design and the placement and out here. What were your thoughts when you saw this building? Is because at the time there was nothing out here that looked like this.
When I got hired and rode up to the building the first time, it was just like, wow, what a building. You don't expect to see anything of this nature in Danville, Virginia. And you come inside and you see how unique it looks, the way it's designed, the atrium itself. It's that's the main drawing card, I reckon. You walk in that atrium and you look around and you say, wow, the way it's built, the way it's made. You look up and you see all the steel work, but you don't see it at the same time. It's just the way it all is put together, and it's sort of hidden, but it's not.
And maintenance people always butt heads with architects and engineers because they want it to look pretty, and we want it to be functional and easy to access. And those two just don't get along.
Like I say, I was here with the contractors, and a lot of the contractors, especially the electrical, and said, "Buddy, I'd hate to be you." And I said, "Why you say that?" And they says, "Well, like these little lights we putting around in the atrium, all of them have ballast, no way to get to them." And fortunately, I don't think I had to get to any of them. But the only way you would do it, you'd have to cut holes somewhere to be able to reach in there to it. And that was, to me, that's something that they should learn from. Don't put your ballast with your lights if you can't get to them. Put them remotely somewhere in a closet where you just open up a door and a panel or something, and there they are.
And luckily to that point, Jeff, the way technology has changed and lighting has changed, what we would probably do today is instead of changing that ballast out, we'd replace the whole fixture with a LED. And that's actually what we're doing on a lot of the lights around the facility now. All of our bathrooms, the majority of them anyway, have been already converted to LED fixtures. And we've got, as Jeff mentioned, just thousands of lights in just this one building. And all of those, we're making plans and future plans to go in and change all those out to LED to make them a little more maintenance-free and a little more reliable than what they are now. There's still times that we go into rooms and change out bulbs and ballasts that are literally the original bulbs and ballasts that have been in the building for 20 years now. So obviously we've got a great life out of them, and they've served their time, and time to move forward. And again, that LED lighting replacement is a game changer. I know one thing that I think we've finally gotten a handle on this and talked to our conference center folks and try to prevent this, but balloons. Every time there's a helium-filled balloon in our Great Hall, it will be one let go. Guarantee it. And it will be in the ceiling, and we've got to find and figure out a way to get it down. So it's 30 plus feet in the air, and sometimes multiple balloons. So in the past, we've done different things, like bring a lift in and get up there and get it down. But sometimes the Great Hall is set up in such a way you can't get a lift into the Great Hall. So we would rig up a 25-foot piece of copper pipe with a nail on the end of it to get up there and pop the balloon to get it down before the next event started.
Yeah, and it happens in the atrium too.
Yeah.
Now, when I think about maintenance and facilities, I kind of think about also like a handyman that you might hire for work around the house, or, and they come and they have to, get in the crawl space, or they might have to get up in the attic to work on a piece of equipment. A place that might not be the most accessible, or a place that you would want to go. Have there been situations where either of you have been in a space here where you're like, man, I don't want to be here right now?
Sure. It's not a lot of crawl space here because it's on a slab, but it is above the ceiling. And some of these boxes that's up there that do the heating and cooling have panels to be able to take it out of the ceiling and get up to it. But sometimes the panel's here, the box over here, you can't reach it. So you have to improvise to be able to get over there.
And then this particular building has a black roof. So when it's 100 degrees outside, it's about 130 degrees on that roof. And the sun is just reflecting heat off of it. And, if there's a air handler or other HVAC piece of equipment that's having an issue, you're basically stuck up there until it's fixed.
Yep.
In all my years I've been here, I've never been on the roof before.
You are not missing anything, I promise.
I have to get there at least once just to say I've been on the roof and to get a different perspective of the land up there. But I don't want to be up there in July, though.
That's right.
Well, if you were looking at the fireworks on July the 4th, you could see them pretty well from up there.
Yeah.
I got called in one evening on the 4th and was up there I don't forget what, one of those air handlers more than likely had stopped running. And it was dark, and they started shooting fireworks from somewhere around, and you could see them really well from there. Other than that, there's no reason to go there just as an individual.
Jeff, you were here for 16 years. What did you take away from your employment here?
I learned a lot about technology, not only on the HVAC side, on everything. Like you come into a room and the lights be out, and you get up and you look, and you see, well, they don't just work off of a light switch like most lights work. You start tracing these wires back, and you find some kind of little panel that they go into with a lot of electronics in. So it makes you think, how do I make this work? This is something that they need tonight, and they don't have it, and I need to make it work. So, you would just experiment till something either worked or blew up. You got to learn what you're trying to do. A lot of the stuff here, like in the Great Hall especially, the lighting system, I've never been involved with anything like that. Most people say, you got lights, you turn on the switch. You go in there and you turn this switch on. One of the salons, it works this. You can take that switch out and take it down to on the other side of the building and turn on, thinking you're going to turn those on. It'll turn the ones on where it was made for. I'd never seen anything like this. How does this switch do this when I'm down here on a whole nother system? Mm-hmm. But it did. It takes a lot of time. You can you can call people and they can say, well, yeah, this loop's here and this loop's here and this loop's here, and you don't know what they're talking about. No idea. So you get up there and you get your hands on. And I learned a whole lot about some of this stuff hands on because I had to.
Well, you had to because you're the only one here.
Yeah. Well, one of the problems, I tell you a problem that we did have here, and you were here then, well, during it, probably still having it, was in all of the labs, especially downstairs. Water dripping out of the registers. The registers.
No, you fixed that.
It was.
Yeah, Jeff ended up putting insulated registers in. A register is just where your air blows out of from the ceiling. They were uninsulated beforehand, so the humidity would build up a little bit or it would be warmer in the space above the ceiling, and it would just cause condensation, and it would just drip down out. And Jeff came up with an idea to put insulation on the register faces above ceiling, and that fixed the issue, and we've been good to go ever since.
Yeah, I forgot I did that. But
innovative and creative.
Yeah, but that's the stuff that you learn over time.
For someone new coming into a maintenance position here at this building, what's the learning curve? How long would it take for someone to get familiar with this building and how it operates?
Obviously, we're not just talking about this main building now. We've got 7 buildings on our campus. So we're looking at a 3 to 6 month minimum learning curve just to kind of get a good handle on the systems and the capabilities of everything here. And quite honestly, it's probably more like a year.
I'd say at least a year.
And it's a continuous learning process.
It is.
It is, especially because we're continually adding new programs, new buildings, new tenants, new everything.
Now, this building's been here for 20 years, opened in 2004. It's now 2024. You talked about some of the things, some of the upkeep that has only been done one time or very minimal. Like you said, we discussed the painting of the atrium has only been done one time versus how many times the floor is buffed and waxed, as well as having the windows cleaned once a year. But we've talked about the updates to the light fixtures of trying to switch out as many light fixtures to LED fixtures. Looking ahead 20 years from now, what kind of updates do you think the building will require?
A big one is a new roof. So that's obviously a pretty high ticket item that usually comes with a 20 to 25 year warranty. So we're kind of at that tipping point now to really need a new one. And then obviously in 20 to 25 more years after that, need another one. So there's been some great strides in the actual roofing membrane that they use. The original roof that's on it now is a black rubber membrane, and the newer style is a white EPM, EDM, some acronym, and it's a way tougher material, and it actually controls heat much better since it's white. It's just a real pain to be on in the summertime with the sun shining without sunglasses. It's insanely bright. Flooring, ceiling tile, lighting fixtures, bathroom parts, toilets, sinks, automatic faucets, flush valves, just a myriad of things that have already been changed at least once, if not twice, in the 20 years we've already been here. For the next 20, it'll just keep on continuing on.
Yeah, I didn't think about the roof, one, because I've never been up there. But yeah, the roof replacement, that's if you have a house, replacing the roof, but that's a different kind of roof. It's, you have your underlayment, and then you have your shingles, and you have, it's usually some sort of pitch to it. Or here, the roof, I've never seen it, but it's probably, I'm sure it has some little bit of a slant to it for water runoff.
It is. It's considered a flat roof, but it is a slight decline where it comes off of the center down to the actual gutters that actually run in pipes inside of the building, so you don't see them outside of the building.
Yeah, I never noticed that there was no actual exterior gutters.
Yeah, so there's roof drains built into the top, and they run through 8 or 10 inch pipes inside of the wall that you see little bulkheads. I know you can't see it listening to us, but we're looking at one inside the room now. So,
And they do stop up sometimes too.
yeah, that's one of our maintenance tasks that pop up on our help desk system once or twice a month, is to go around to all our rooftops and check the roof drains to make sure there's no trash and leaves and water bottles and different things that could potentially fall down and stop those up.
Well, that's all the questions that I have. Did y'all have anything else you want to add to this discussion?
You know, here as a maintenance person, you have to do everything inside of the building. Open file drawers that the ladies can't open, or close them back because they won't close. And it's just so many of these little things that you get involved in too that takes a lot of time actually. That people looking at maintenance people don't realize. You know, a building this big, I think personally, should have a person called a utility person or helper or whatever, that they do all these little things.
Yeah, so that's one of the things, one of the big changes that I've seen in the 11 years that I've been here. We have since implemented a help desk system that people can send emails to, and it puts in tickets that we can look through, so we can kind of internally prioritize, that's a big deal, that's not really a big deal, we can push that off until later or tomorrow or next week or whatever. And that's been a huge help for us, just from the volume of tickets that come in.
Yeah.
Because when I first started with Jeff, we might have had 30 employees total.
Probably.
And today we're really getting close to 170, 180 employees, or that's what's projected. So the volume of people and requests has certainly increased tremendously.
I'm sure.
Well, Jeff and Stewart, I thank you for being guests on this episode. And Jeff, certainly thank you for agreeing to come on here and talking about your experience here in the main building. And I've always enjoyed working with you, enjoyed listening and hearing your stories and everything. And Stewart, I'm glad you're still here and keeping the building going.
Yeah, and I want to thank Jeff for, obviously hiring me originally, but his time together with me, and just I think he knows, how much I appreciated him and for all he's done and taught me. So thanks, Jeff.
You're welcome. I'm glad I could contribute to you, and I've always enjoyed working with you too, and your willingness to learn too. We made a good team.
Yep.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today to discuss your careers and experiences with maintaining 150 Slayton Avenue over the years. Megabytes, IALR's on-site cafe, features everyday favorites, convenient ordering options, and an eager staff ready to welcome and serve you. Our enticing menus offer something for everyone, from a fresh, well-stocked salad bar, wraps, sandwiches, and our rotating hot buffet offered on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Megabytes is open Monday through Friday from 9:15 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. To view menus and for more information, visit IALR.org/megabytes.